the head of the Bureau of Military Political Affairs, an experienced Russian specialist, a politician, and a man who has his finger on the pulse of all things Russia. So, Alexander, I want to thank you for coming here today.
Thank you a lot for great words, Scott, that you have said about our country. It has been a pleasure to listen to such words from the American citizens. It's, rare case when we listen to such frank words about our country, particularly over the recent years. At the same time, I would agree with you that we represent two biggest missile and nuclear powers in the strategic dialogue, which has been the case over the last couple of decades, provided for at least certainty on our planet. And the people, not only the citizens of both our countries, but the citizens of other dozens of states, were not afraid to be awakened by a nuclear Armageddon. Right now the situation is, and that's the social networks demonstrate, and the people demonstrate, voting for the peace between the East and the West, which will give only the positives and benefits to all the stakeholders in this dialogue. So let's follow the situation. Unfortunately, right now in Russia, you were right to mention that in regions of Bryansk, Belgorod and Kursk regions, which have direct borderline with Ukraine, a very unfavorable military situation. Russia is not conducting offensive on Ukrainian borderline. Now it is in retreat, but the adversary is using both air and heavy artillery systems. The defenders of this borderline saw in South Donetsk Leopard tanks. It was the first time, and there is evidence from the people on the front lines. So the Ukrainian army is using German tanks, which were supplied to Ukraine from Europe. So far, we don't see many of them, just some spots. But the dialogue which happened in November concerning the Leopard, now it's June, and we already witnessed Leopard in operation on the borderline. So it's not the speed what the Ukrainians were expected to get these heavy systems, but it is in war conflict against Russian group. The situation is not very easy. I'm constantly getting information from Shebek in that Belgorod region and from different spots on the borderline and on the front line in Kherson region, in South Donetsk region, in Makiivka in Donetsk region. There is still shelling going on. So we're following the situation, Scott.
No, it's war is the people speak of the fog of war. We hear that in everybody, and especially early on in something. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of in some cases concern, even fear about what's transpiring. But I think we can agree that, as you indicated, the initial discussions about the Leopard began last October, November, and they're just now appearing on the battlefield. So I think we can agree that none of this has taken the Russian government or the Russian military by surprise, that this is something that has been anticipated. And while the Ukrainians can achieve localized surprise, localized success, that strategically Russia should be in a position to absorb the Ukrainian blows and retain its a superior military posture on the battlefield. Do you share my optimism, or do you have reason to believe otherwise?
I do believe that right now the Ukrainian forces need to demonstrate not only the determination or military success, but they need to report to Washington, to Brussels, to London for the billion of US dollars and euros spent, not on the economy of the Ukraine, but in military machine of Ukraine. Of course, people in the street got nothing. They got armory, weapons, and the weapons weapons which is used not only against the adversary and the peaceful civilians of the Ukrainians, just citizens, are the hostage of the Ukrainian regime, which allow the West countries to pump this area with the weapons and to give all the support, the political support to those activities that Ukraine is conducting against Russian borders. I would like to reiterate that according to the Russian doctrine, when our sovereign territory is attacked, Russia has a right to use all the military capabilities possible, including the strategic nuclear weapons. Ukraine is acting on a thin line, and there is a propaganda that the Russian liberation army is penetrating the Russian territory, and we see even the mercenaries from Poland, from Europe, and Ukrainian reserve troops which are deployed there, and they are shelling and they take their hit squads inside the Russian territory. But in foreign policy and what we see in the West mass media, they are talking about kind of guerrilla liberation army or movement. It's nonsense. It's a very dangerous play. Those people who take control of that are walking on a thin line, on a thin ice, because, you know, if there is a big attack on Russian territory, there's going to be all the military means necessary. Probably that's what the Washington needs, because Europe doesn't need it at all. If there is a stake on a long-term campaign to defeat Russia, I can understand that, but I don't understand why these European countries need that. If there is a nuclear cloud, it's going to move towards Europe, and this territory cannot support life. So why is this escalation happening? It's one thing when Russia is liberating 4 regions in Donbass, you know, included in the Russian territory, and there is a military conflict, but there is a territory of Russia which has always been the Russian territory, even before the collapse of the USSR, even during the Tsar, the monarchy time of a Russian empire that was sovereign part of Russia. And now, what it can end up in a big campaign against Ukraine, or these decision-making centers attack from Russia, or serious escalation at the level of the against the collective West, or what is going to happen? I believe that the parties supporting this attack against Belgorod region are there, you know, playing with fire. You know, it's a very dangerous case. So we need to differentiate between the military action on Donbass region and attempts to shell Russian territory using foreign mercenaries and foreign arms. What do Poles have to do with the Belgorod region? What do they have that? But they have their broadcast, this Polish broadcast, and they demonstrate a direct involvement in the military conflict against Russian citizens, as they killed and injured, wounded people of Belgorod rural areas have nothing to do with the conflict in Ukraine. It's a very dangerous case. We need to get back to our sense. European leaders need to get back to their sense, to remember the Ukrainian regime, to read the doctrine of Russian security. All the threats and risks are stipulated quite clearly. You know, the Europe and America providing all the capabilities, fuel, material support of the Ukrainian army. So we will have to bomb and attack this borderline of Ukraine and Europe if the escalation doesn't stop.